Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for another Books and Looks video. I'm Jen, and if you are new here, I talk about books that I have recently read while I put on my makeup for the day. If you are returning and you've seen some of my other videos, thank you so much for coming back and watching more. I hope you like hearing about today's book. Today's book is Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. This book was actually a gift given to me by my student teacher. And it was a little thank you gift on one of her last days. And she does me very well because this is a mystery book and people die in it. I know that sounds morbid, but I like books that people die in. So this was a good choice. I finished it. It took me a little while because, well, I'll get into it. Let's get started and I'll tell you about it as I go. You may notice that I have a little bit of a different setup. So, well, maybe you won't notice because it's behind the scenes. But if you see me like looking left and right, it's because I have a mirror, I have my laptop. So, still getting used to these types of things. So, Then She Was Gone. So the premise is that there is this family and the youngest daughter, Ellie, disappeared. She literally, I'm using the wrong, oh, I guess I am using this one. She literally disappeared one day. She was on her way to the library to study for final exams. It takes place in London. So they were called GCSEs. I don't know. I'm not familiar with English schooling, but she was studying. Like she was, I want to say, a junior in high school, and she had a boyfriend and was happy, and she was doing really well and getting ready to take her finals for the year, and she literally just up and disappeared. So 10 years later, the story begins, and you find out that the mother never recovered from the trauma of losing her daughter. Now she does have two older children, a son and a daughter, and you find out that in the 10 years since Ellie has gone missing, the family is basically fallen apart. Like they don't really talk to each other anymore. The husband and wife got a divorce. She never really recovered. She's still traumatized by it. She's completely heartbroken over it, and she never really got over it. So here we are 10 years later, and the book has a really, really slow beginning. So, there's some flashbacks to, in the first half of the book, there's some flashbacks to when Ellie was still around and character development. So you know who Ellie was and what the family was like before she disappeared and all of that. And she was being tutored for her final exam so she could get straight A's. And she, was popular and well-liked and pretty and had this nice boyfriend, and her family was just fantastic. And then she disappeared, and they went on the news, and everybody thought she just ran away from the stress and pressures of where she was and, the finals and everything. But the mother, always knew, no, I know my daughter. She did not run away. I don't care what anybody says. I know she didn't run away. And, there's zero evidence of, any foul play. They never find a body. And then, 4 years after her disappearance, somebody broke into the house and stole Ellie's old laptop, some expensive candlesticks that were, worth money, her sister's passport, some cash, some food. And so everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's Ellie. She really did run away. She was just coming back to get some stuff. So that the mother was absolutely not. I still don't think this is what happened. I think there was foul play, she was kidnapped or something. But everybody, the neighborhood, the police, everybody's like, oh no. She just ran away. This is just more evidence that we were right all along. Well, so then we fast forward to present day. The family's broken apart. Nobody really talks to anybody. But the mom, what was her name? Laurel meets this man and in the coffee, just sitting there reading the paper, drinking her coffee, and this very nice, handsome man comes up to her and he says oh, hello, I thought you were very pretty. I was wondering if you would like to sit together and talk while we have our coffee and cake. And Laurel's like, yeah, he's handsome. He seems really nice. Like, no gut feeling, no, whatever. So she's like, yeah, lovely. Oh, and also, I forgot, in the first half, before she met Floyd, they also found Ellie's body. Well, part of her body. They found her bones in the woods or something. Like, they found her backpack with, like, the computer that was stolen from the house and the sister's passport, things of that nature, and some bones. And they did DNA testing and they found it was her. So Laurel finally has some closure. They found her remains, and so she's like, okay, well, at least, I have some closure. My daughter has died. They have a funeral, etc. So now it's like a couple months later, and she meets this guy. His name's Floyd, and she's like in a better place now that she has closure. So she decides to sit with him and talk with him, and then they start dating, and they become a couple. Well, she goes to his house, and as it turns out, he has a young daughter who's 9 years old, like just turned 9 years old. And Laurel's like, oh my gosh, this girl looks exactly like my daughter. Like, and also remember, the daughter like disappeared 10 years ago, and now this little girl is 9. So already, if you do the math, questionable. And this little girl looks exactly like her daughter. Like, the same color hair, the same face shape, the same eyes, the same, even like the way she walks and the way she talks and everything, just so much like her daughter. She's freaked out. Like, oh, who is this girl? So she's just gotten closure. Like, her daughter, they found her remains, they had a funeral, she's finally gotten closure, and now this guy comes out of nowhere who has a daughter who looks exactly like her daughter who went missing and is also the same age that could possibly be. So, like, me as the reader, I'm reading it and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, was this girl, secretly pregnant and didn't know what to do and so ran away, and then, whatever happened, and or maybe this guy was like her secret boyfriend or like a rape situation. I didn't know, but I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like maybe this girl was pregnant and Ellie was pregnant and that's why she ran away. Spoiler alert, that's not what happened. So slowly but surely, it's a very slow-paced book. So I love the story. It had some fun twists and turns, but it was slow-paced. And a little bit predictable, which I think the author was going for, because you find out about little beyond halfway through what happened to Ellie. So now Laurel is like suspicious and curious and trying to figure out what's going on because questionable. She starts going back through Ellie's old like diaries and journals and stuff, and she sees a couple of entries. That's where I was looking for. Entries where she's talking about the tutor. Remember I said that she was having a tutor for her finals, GCSEs. So she's like, this tutor is very weird. Like, she keeps asking me what I like and what my favorite foods are. And like, she's asking me about, she's giving me gifts. And it's weird. She's weirding me out. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies. So she doesn't tell anybody, but she asks her mom to fire her. She's like, I think I've got everything I need to do for my finals. I'm ready. You can let her go. Like, we can save some money, blah, blah, blah. Well, so the mom does end up letting the tutor go, and the tutor's name was Noelle. So she's suspicious, like, okay, my daughter had the heebie-jeebies about this woman. But then there was another connection. She was at Floyd's house and happened to see a pile of mail on the table, and one of the letters was addressed to Noelle, the tutor. And at first she was like, I know this name. Who is this Noelle person? Like, I know this name. Who is she? And she can't recall. And then she goes back through the daughter's journals and it clicks. She's like, oh my gosh, Noelle was the tutor. The tutor that, unbeknownst to me, my daughter thought was weird and creeped out by. So now she's starting to put things together. She's like, oh my gosh, Noelle is connected to Floyd in some capacity and connected to Ellie. So she's really starting to get suspicious, right? So she asks Floyd, who is this Noelle? Like, funny story. I know this Noelle person. How do you know this Noelle person? And Floyd's like, oh, Noelle is my daughter, Poppy's mother. And she's like, interesting. I never knew she had any children. Like, she never mentioned to me that anything. I mean, it's a tutor. Like, a tutor's probably not going to mention that information anyway. But she's like, that's very strange considering, like, okay, my new boyfriend's daughter's mother used to be my tutor. She's just starting to, like, the pieces are all there, but they're not all fitting together, right? So then she starts to do a little more investigating, and she asks her other daughter, like, did Ellie ever tell you anything about her old tutor, Noelle? And she's like, oh yeah, like, she hated her. She was creeped out. She felt like, just very weirded out by her. So now, I don't know if you are starting to put the pieces together. This point in the story now, the narration switches. Well, first of all, the narration was like sometimes Laurel's point of view, and it was like first person point of view. Sometimes it was a flashback, and it was then, and it was Ellie's point of view in the days leading up to her disappearance. And so, like, you can sort of piece things together. Well, now at this point in the story, it switches, and now we start to see Noelle's point of view for several chapters, for probably a good third of the book. So again, we're about halfway through the book at this point. Laurel now knows, like, Floyd, Poppy, Noelle, their little family, that her daughter was weirded out by Noelle. There's all these weird connections, and Poppy looks exactly like. So, and Poppy hated Noelle. When Laurel asks Poppy, like, what do you remember about your mother? She's like, I don't really remember much about her. All I know is she was not a nice person, and I'm glad she left. Oh, they don't know where Noelle is. Nobody knows where Noelle is. They're just like, she just up and left one day, left Poppy on the doorstep and said, I can't do this anymore, and walked away, and, like, disappeared, walked away, like, nobody knows where she is. So Poppy's like, I'm glad she left. I didn't really like her. She was mean to me. Blah, blah, blah. I'm so happy I'm with my dad. He's such a good dad. I love him so much. He takes care of me. He loves me, blah, blah, blah. So now it switches to Noelle's point of view, and she is bonkers. Straight up bonkers. So it starts off, Noelle is, like, kind of like writing letters, diary-ish, and she is talking about how, like, she met Floyd, and she was a student at the time, and Floyd is a mathematics professor, and he, like, wrote some textbooks, right? And so Noelle is talking about in her chapters how she always loved his books, and she's also into mathematics, and, like, was so excited to meet him, and never expected them to start dating and to hit it off and to become a couple. And this is all on Floyd, because she never dreamed, her wildest dreams, that this is where it would end up, and all she ever wanted was to be happy and to make Floyd happy. And she knew she was never quite good enough for him, but what could she do? Like, she loved him and he loved her back, so she had to do whatever she could to keep him happy and keep him around. Well, slowly but surely, the relationship started going south, and she got pregnant and lost a baby. And while she was still pregnant, Floyd was, like, so excited. He's like, he's divorced and he has an older daughter, but, like, never really a strong relationship. So he's like, this is my chance. I'm so excited. We're going to have a family. This is what I've always dreamed of, to have, like, a child that can really be in my life and I can have a relationship with. But then she loses the baby, and Floyd is, like, understandably disappointed and sad, but that's kind of like the last straw in their relationship. And he didn't break up with her, but it was awkward from that point forward. And then this is, again, still Noelle's chapters, and Noelle is like, what else was I supposed to do? Clearly the only thing to do to you, Floyd, was to have another baby. And I tried. I lied about being on birth control, and I did all this, and it just never happened. And then the opportunity showed itself to me. She got the tutoring job working with Ellie, and she kind of, like, not fell in love with Ellie, but kind of became obsessed with her, and was kind of like, she's beautiful, she's smart, she's kind, she's, like, the perfect person. So she literally, like, becomes obsessed with her. And this little not formula, I don't know, plan came to her. And so she decides, oh, after she was fired, after Ellie got her fired from the tutoring job, she's like, I can't survive without this girl. Like, she makes me feel so happy. And like when I'm with her, I feel seen and heard. And Ellie is just so kind and so beautiful. The only good thing in my life right now is my weekly tutoring sessions with Ellie. I'm not going to let this end. So like a couple of weeks go by and she's obsessing over Ellie. And the fates aligned for Noelle. She happened to see Ellie walking to the library one day right near her house. And so she's like, hey, how you doing, Ellie? I haven't seen you in so long. Why don't you stop by, have a cup of tea, and we'll chat. I'd love to hear how you're doing. It's been a while. And so Ellie's like, okay, because she's nice and is like, I guess, okay. And so she ends up going to Noelle's house, and Noelle effectively kidnaps her. And you find out that she had been planning this and was just waiting for an opportunity to take her. And so she literally had like cleared out her basement, put a bed down there, a television. She even got her hamster for some reason. She thought Ellie liked hamsters for some reason. And so she got her like a pet hamster so she wouldn't be lonely down there, and literally locked her in the basement and kept her in the basement for months. And this is really where, I mean, Noelle is psycho, but this is where it really gets psycho. So remember, she like wants to have a baby with Floyd to try to keep him around. It has to be like the perfect baby so that Floyd will truly be in love with both of them. So she keeps Ellie in the basement for several months and tracks her menstrual cycle to know that when she's ovulating. And then this part's weird. She bought sperm on the internet. Apparently you can do that. I don't know. I'm not fact checking that. But apparently it's a thing. And Noelle bought sperm off the internet and then drugged Ellie and impregnated her like through artificial insemination. That's what it's called. I was going to say IVF, but that's wrong. Basically does artificial insemination and gets Ellie pregnant, still keeping her locked in this basement. And now here we are like a year later, maybe like a year and a half later. No, I think it's like a year later. Cause she does it pretty quickly. If you think of the math of like the pregnancy and how old Poppy is and whatnot. So Ellie literally has a baby in the basement with like zero prenatal care. Noelle does everything, like brings her clothes and medicine and food and everything, and births this child in her basement and takes the baby after like a couple of weeks of Ellie like nursing it and, getting it, healthy and thriving, takes it and then goes to Floyd and is like, so I had your baby. Because like they kind of hadn't been seeing each other for a while, but I mean they were, but they weren't. So he literally hadn't seen her in a couple of months, and so she just shows up and was like, I didn't want to tell you because all these lies. Like I didn't want to tell you I was pregnant because I was worried that I would lose it, and you weren't really seeing me much anyway. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just do this. But then once the baby got here, I thought it's fair for me to this beautiful child from her father, so I'm back. And she has like this, 1 month old, 2 month old, however what it is, couple week old baby, shows up at his doorstep and is like, hey, this is your baby girl. It's yours. And of course Floyd is like, oh my gosh, I love her. She's so wonderful. I can't wait to do this and co-parent. He's like, I'm not interested in being in a relationship, but like we can co-parent and be together or whatnot. So they do. They spend the next couple of years co-parenting, but Noelle is crazy bonkers. So she's like really bad at caring for this child. And every time the child is with her, like all the Poppy does as a baby is like cry and fuss. And Noelle is like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle this. And so basically like doesn't know how to take care of the baby. In the meantime, I don't think they ever actually say. I think it's maybe like 6 months later, you find out that Ellie got some sort of infection from, birth. Like, she literally gave birth in a crazy lady's basement. So it did not go well. And it's the wrong brush. So she had an infection, and Noelle couldn't take Ellie to the hospital. She's kidnapped, So she literally, and then Ellie's also like, help, please, I'm so sick. I want to go home. Please take me to the doctor. I won't tell anybody who you are. Just please take me to the hospital. And Noelle is like, shut up. I don't want to hear about it anymore. And literally just like closes and locks her in the basement and just pretends she doesn't exist. Stops taking care of her, stops feeding her, stops everything. And Ellie dies in the basement. And Noelle is just like, we'll just pretend like she doesn't exist. Literally months go by, and she has this dead body of the kidnapped girl, mother of her baby, secret baby, whatever you want to call it, is rotting away in her basement. And the only reason she does anything about it is like, and the timeline isn't quite right, because she is like, I need to get rid of this body because it stinks. But she had the baby like a year after they were kidnapped. But then the plan to get rid of the body is she puts it in the trunk of her car and takes it out into the woods and like buries it in the woods. But she takes the backpack with all the things, like the passport and the laptop and all of that she burgled. But the thing is she burgled it 4 years after Ellie was kidnapped. So if she was kidnapped and then a year later had the baby and then like 6 months later died, that means she had this dead body in her basement for 2.5 years before it got stinky enough to get rid of. Like, I don't know. That's questionable to me. Like, that math doesn't add up. But I mean, that's okay. I will let this pass. But I didn't understand it. Like, how can you have a dead body in your basement for 2 years before you decide, wait, this stinks, maybe I should get rid of it? But whatever. It started to stink, so she got rid of it. She breaks into the house and steals the stuff in order to have the evidence of, like, because for whatever reason she wanted them to know whose body it was. I don't know. But either way, there we go. So she gets rid of the body. She dumps it in the woods with all of the stuff. And then it's like another 5 years later before they find it. And then that's where like the story begins, where they found the body and they had a funeral. And then Laurel has closure and meets Floyd and story unrolls. But so going back, Noelle got rid of the body. But she's also like, she hates this kid because the kid doesn't like her. And I mean, I can kind of understand why the kid doesn't like her. The entire time she was in utero, her mother was like a victim. So I kind of feel like it was like a natural, I don't know. You get it, right? Like the baby instinctively hated the woman because her mother hated her and fear and whatnot. So it was like a learned thing. That's kind of my thought process here. So anyway, Noelle decides she doesn't want this baby anymore, so she literally takes it. No, I'm sorry, that's not what happened. Noelle is like, I don't know what to do with this kid. She likes you better. She hates me, blah, blah, blah. And so she goes to Floyd's house, which, by the way, like, they were co-parenting. Like, the child was with Floyd very often. They were very close. And then she and Floyd get in a fight. Noelle and Floyd get in a fight. And he's like, I'm done with this. You are a terrible mother. I'm going to apply for full custody. It's going to be my child. And I mean, I'll let you have visits, but it'll have to be here, supervised, and I'm going to be here. And so Noelle is like, no, that's not going to work. I did all of this so I could have you. Like, I don't even want this kid, and now you're going to use it to end our relationship. Like, no, like, I am keeping this child because it is the only connection I have with you. So don't even go there. Like, no, that's not the plan, Floyd. The plan is I have this baby. It's yours. And that's our connection with one another. You can't take her from me. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? And she said, well, just so you know, she's not even your child anyway. As a matter of fact, she's not even my child. I don't even like her. I don't even want her. And Floyd's like, what? And so Noelle literally in a fit of rage tells him everything. She's not even yours. Her mother is Ellie, and the father is some random person on the internet whose sperm I bought. So go ahead and try to get the courts to give her to you when you're not even her father. And like, was ready to walk away, like take Poppy and run away as like punishment to him for breaking up with her and trying to take the baby. Which, by the way, at this point, Poppy's like 5, I think, because he's like, I want her to live with me and go to school and da-da-da-da. But, so, Noelle is like, this isn't going to happen. She's not even your child, so go ahead and try to take her from me because she's not even yours. And Floyd's like, come again? And basically loses his mind and throttles her, strangles her, kills her, like attacks her and like knocks her over and kills her in a fit of rage. So now he's like, what do I do now? I just killed this woman and she just confessed to me that this baby isn't mine. If he loves Poppy, like genuine, he is Poppy's father in his heart. So to find out that he's actually not her father, and then he just accidentally killed her mother, who's actually not actually her mother now. So he's like putting it together, and he's like, oh my gosh, if I call somebody and like dead woman, I accidentally killed her, blah blah blah, I'm gonna lose Poppy. I'm gonna go to jail. This is all kinds of bad. So he buries Noelle in the backyard, which, you know, that's a good backup plan, right? That'll solve it all. He buries her in the backyard and takes Poppy and is like, we don't know where Noelle went. She ran away. She just dropped her off at my house and was like, I am not interested in being a mother anymore. I don't like this child. She doesn't like me. So I'm out. And he tells everybody that Noelle just left her here and that's where it ended. This is not what I want. Swipe that off. So he goes on his merry way, and because of what Noelle told him about like, oh, she's not even yours, blah, 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 he starts to look into it, and he starts looking up who is Ellie, like Ellie, missing girl. He starts to investigate, and he figures everything out. He knows that Noelle used to work for Ellie and tutor her. He knows where Ellie is from, that she went missing years ago. They found her body, fewer years ago. He pieces it all together. Oh, and he also goes over to Noelle's house and sees the crazy basement with like the bed and the hamster and da-da-da-da-da. So he figures it all out. And then he starts looking into Ellie's parents and understands like, they've gotten divorced and the family isn't doing well. And he thinks Laurel is like, he kind of becomes obsessed with Laurel in his research about Ellie. He's like, she's beautiful and she's smart and she's so strong the way she handled this. She never gave up looking for her child. She's just an amazing woman. So he kind of stalks her. There's a lot of stalking going on and like obsession and craziness. Well, he ends up stalking her a little bit, not like crazy insane, but he's just like, she's just this amazing, beautiful, wonderful woman. And he like intentionally goes to the coffee shop where he knows that she frequents, and ends up like, oh, hi, I'm Floyd. You mind if I sit with you? But it was all planned out. The little sneaky. Oh man, I messed that up. Oh well, it's fine. You look like a little sneaky. Okay. There we go. So he actually planned it all out to meet her intentionally. Partly because of his guilt, and he knows that Poppy is actually her granddaughter because he pieced it all together. He knows that Laurel is Poppy's grandmother and kind of wants them to meet and like basically help her have some sort of closure and meet her granddaughter. But also because he kind of loves her and is a little obsessed with her. And he's like, at the very end, the last chapter is like this one really long chapter where he confesses, he does a video. He leaves a video message for her, and basically says like, oh, it tells her everything. Like, this is what happened with me and Noelle, and then Poppy, and then I started researching, and I thought you were an amazing woman, and I never expected to fall in love with you, and I definitely never expected for you to fall in love with me, because like they started dating and they had a good relationship. Like, they were actually boyfriend and girlfriend for like a couple of months until like everything clicked and she started to like put the pieces together. And she sees remember the candlesticks that Noelle stole from their house? The candlesticks are in Poppy's bedroom. So like that was the big thing that triggered her. She's like, those are mine 100%. So in Floyd's video at the end, he's like, oh yeah, I never expected us to actually love each other, to build this relationship. That is not ever what I would have thought would have come of this. And so I realized that, like, I only have two choices here. Choice one is to go to jail, like confess everything, be arrested, go to jail. Because Noelle is buried in my backyard. He confesses everything. Noelle is buried in my backyard. I've known for a long time who Poppy is, that she's Ellie's daughter, and that Noelle is the one who kidnapped and killed Ellie. I didn't tell you because I was afraid of losing Poppy, the only good thing in my life. And then I met you and I fell in love with you, and now I had two good things in my life. I didn't think this would ever come together. And so he's like, I don't want to do that. So I'm leaving and you'll never hear from me again. And then the very last little tiny chapter is he like drives off somewhere and kills himself in the middle of nowhere because he doesn't want to like go to jail or whatever. So that's how the story ends. And then Laurel is like, so Poppy, how would you feel about it if I was your grandmother? And Poppy's like, I would actually really love that, especially since Daddy's gone. And she's like, I've always wanted a big family. And she has like an aunt and an uncle with, the siblings, and then like a grandma and a grandfather. And then the grandfather, like Laurel's ex-husband, remarried. And the sister is married, so she's like, oh, I have aunts and uncles, and one day I'll have cousins. And so Poppy is like sad about it, but she's also like seeing the bright side because Poppy is just this sweet little girl. So that's how the story ends. I really liked it. The first half though, when it was like a little too much character development, a little too much of a slow burn, there were lots of little things that were unnecessary. Like the brother Jake has this girlfriend who's like into like auras and reading crystals and stuff. Like, that was completely unnecessary. You could have lost like 10 pages of story if you took that all out. It was completely unnecessary. She was just like, I don't know about this Floyd guy. He doesn't have a good aura. Like, okay, we didn't need that. And then there were like some other flashbacks to like their family experiences. And then there was this whole scene where it was a week before Christmas, and Laurel's like, why don't you have a Christmas tree or any decorations? And he's like, I don't know, I just never do it. And she's like, we should get a Christmas tree. And Poppy's like, yes, please, let's get a Christmas tree. So they go out and they get a Christmas tree, and then they bring it back and they decorate the house. Like, that wasn't necessary. Like, why is that detail of Floyd not having a Christmas tree? Like, it's completely unnecessary. So in my opinion, there were lots of bits and pieces that were not at all necessary to the plot and just made the whole first half slow and tedious, to the point where there were multiple times I put it down and it was days before I picked it up. But once I got to Noelle's chapters and like her crazy bonkers side of the story, that's when it got really good. And there's some chapters from Ellie, from her point of view while she was in the basement, and that was really cool too. Like the victim's point of view of like when she was kidnapped and the time in the basement, and Noelle being bonkers to her, and then like finding out she was pregnant and having the baby and being so sick from the infection that she like knew she was gonna die but didn't know what she was couldn't do anything. She was literally locked in a basement. So that all part got really, really good. And then Floyd's craziness slowly coming out at the end, and then his final chapter. So like it was predictable. Like, I kind of knew Noelle was going to have an element, and I kind of knew that Floyd knew who Poppy was and what Noelle had done. But to see it like unravel from Laurel's point of view as she figured it out. That was kind of interesting. And then like all the different point of views. Some of it was from Laurel, some of it was from Noelle, some of it was from Floyd, some of it was from Ellie. So I did like that. That was an interesting way to tell the story and bring it all together at the end. So overall, I don't know. I'm thinking 3.5 out of 5. Or like a 7 out of 10, because like I said, I did really like the ending. It has fun twists, lots of crazy people, which I always enjoy. You know, people died, so intense, emotional. But it had a really slow start, and there were a lot of bits and pieces that I didn't think were necessary. So yeah, that's the end. I hope you think this book sounds interesting. I know I spoiled pretty much the whole story, but I don't know, maybe you'll still want to read it. Just because you know who did it doesn't mean you won't enjoy the story. Now you'll just get to notice all the hints and clues as you read it. And this is my look. I did a pretty basic look today. I feel like I've been doing this a lot lately. Just like neutrals, but I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing today. Well, I know what I'm doing today, but I'm not sure what I'm going to be wearing today. So I'm just going with like my basic go-to look. I like it. I hope you like it. That's the end of my video. Thank you for sticking with me through this long one. I hope you enjoy the book. Please comment below what you think of the story that I just described, if you think you might give it a read. Also, if you have any book recommendations, we're coming in on summer, so I could use some new book recs for my summer reading list. And I hope you like my look. If you have any ideas or suggestions or some interesting looks you'd like me to try, color schemes, anything like that, let me know. I'd love to try it. I like some new ideas. So yeah, that's the end. I hope you guys have a fantastic everything. And as always, stay beautiful inside and out. Bye.